from St. Augustine. It's Saturday night!
Yeah.
Woo! All right, it's August 5th, 2010.
Yes!
And
Life,
here's
baby.
Dr. John
Healing.
Bellamo.
Don't tell me you can't heal. God can heal anything. He can even heal you. Now, tonight what we're going to talk about is CTE. I'm going to give away a special gift for those of you who can tell us. What is CTE? Remember?
CTE.
CTE. It attacks all football players, lacrosse players, basketball players, soccer players. CTE. Remember? Know what? No? Cranial, I like that.
Something.
Cervical traumatic
Cervical traumatic.
episode?
Yeah, very good. You get to be a hog, which is what? A hand of God.
Oh,
Very good.
I like
Very
that.
good. So we're going to talk a little bit about Jim McMahon, but before we do that, we do want to share real quickly something that Joe Strauss said. And Joe Strauss, if you've never read his book, The Chiropractic Philosophy, if you haven't read it, 1 or 2 of you have, 3 or 4, 8, 10, 12 of you have read it, okay? Let's talk about disease and health in chiropractic. To cure no diseases. The third reason why chiropractors accept members is to restore the integrity of the nervous system so that the innate intelligence of the body can express itself to its fullest potential. So tonight's message is on a good news mindset. And so what we as chiropractors, we have the opportunity to give them good news that they've never heard anywhere else. Because we have been taught the truth, and the truth is that we're self-regulating, self-healing, and self-restoring based on how God designed us. Joe Strauss goes on to say, the chiropractor recognizes that a body with or without disease manifesting symptoms or symptom-free is far better off with a good nerve supply. There has been research done to show that a vertebral subluxation does impinge upon a nerve, does impinge upon the tissue, both at the cord and at the IVF, and that this interference decreases the potential of the nerve and therefore the potential of the body. This has been done in chiropractic research programs and is also medically sponsored programs. The straight chiropractor recognizes that relatively little is known about the body and disease, and therefore hypothesizes that the effects of the vertebral subluxation will kill the body short-term or long-term. And then he finally says this, although patients are confused as to what their objectives are, they should understand their chiropractor's objective, to enable them to have a good nerve supply. Many times, outsiders, particularly those critical of chiropractic, do not understand and accuse chiropractors of trying to treat all conditions. This is most likely caused by the fact that treatment of disease is the only frame of reference. The treatment of disease is the only way that they have been raised, in which most doctors of all kinds think. So this is their thought. Their thought pattern is that we're treating disease, that we're treating pain. And it's because of the way that they think that is destroying our culture, especially destroying families, and especially in pediatric chiropractic. That frame of mind. When an individual thinks in a disease treatment frame of reference, it is difficult to understand someone functioning in another frame. So if you're raised to have that value system and belief system, you can't understand what the chiropractic does unless we spend the time and take them through this process of educating. So their belief systems and their faith systems are going to start increasing and changing because they have been conditioned by this false doctrine. And I love that verse that says, do not be conformed to the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so if you're renewing your mind at shopping at Walgreens and CVS on a regular basis, if you're renewing your mind about getting a blood test after blood test after a blood test, then what happens is you're in a culture that's teaching you sickness care versus what we were talking about earlier with Dr. Jay Hartley and Dr. Joe Accurso as well, is that in Asia, it's called health assurance. In Asia, they assure that you'll be functioning and then you're going to pay them. But if you lose the ability to function, if the body starts getting oppressed and ill and weak, then the doctor has to pay you. That is called health assurance. Over here, what do we teach? We teach sickness insurance. We teach use your card when your body is already sick or when your body's already manifesting a breakdown. You see the difference? So when does the body represent a breakdown? When it finally expresses a symptom. When it finally expresses a symptom, your body has already been in an interfered system. So it's already weak. You're waiting for it to express itself, which is way, 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 way too late. So let's go ahead and we're going to go over a little bit about this, this chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So let's take a look a little bit at it and get a feel for it. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about... Now, by the way, if you don't know Jim McMahon, he was a quarterback in the 1985 Super Bowl. And it's supposedly the #1 ever team that totally went undefeated. And they were feared by everybody to play this Jim McMahon, Mike Ditka, I think his name was, football team. And so in '85, they won everything. And so we're going to show a video so you can understand about this chronic traumatic CTE stuff that we talked about earlier. Let's take a look at it.
The 1985 Chicago Bears, one of those NFL teams that come along once in a lifetime. With a colorful cast of characters, they shuffled their way to one of the single greatest season achievements of any NFL team. A feat still stands today, but more than 35 years later, there's a dark side to the story. Many team members have struggled with the effects of traumatic brain injuries, including CTE. In part 5 of our exclusive investigation, News Nation's Rich McHugh spoke with Super Bowl winning quarterback Jim McMahon. He opened up about his own battle with the degenerative brain disease and the effects it's had on other team members as well.
So when you hear about traumatic brain, they call it traumatic brain disease, what happens to so many of our...
My body feels as good as it's going to feel after 18 plus surgeries.
Hold on a sec.
Yeah, so what happens is you're starting to learn how to play football at 5 years old, soccer, basketball, and when you take a jerk, a little hit as a little kid, what happens is the same thing when a boxer hits you, you get a slight hyperextension. I'll tell you another one is horseback riding. People always go, well, I never really fell off my horse. When you're horseback riding and galloping, all you're doing is doing this, and you're causing extension, 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 and you're causing pressure against the brainstem. So what we're seeing here, they did this special on him because he was losing his mind, and what ended up happening was several people on one football team actually committed suicide, took their own lives because they couldn't deal with what was going on in their brain, and the medical system, which is the lost system that so many people have embraced, are waiting to notice failure of brain tissue post-morbidity. So they would only know that you had this issue after you died, which, of course, is typical for that allopathic mechanistic system that they've been teaching us.
Feels as good as it's going to feel after 18 plus surgeries. I went back to Medellin, Colombia 2 years ago. I had 275 million stem cells put in my body, so I think that helped me a lot. My head is really the worst of my problems.
In 2012, McMahon was diagnosed with early onset dementia.
I was losing my mind. Started having these bad thoughts and really bad headaches. I'd be laying in a dark room for weeks at a time.
How old were you at the time?
I was probably just over 50. It's not a good feeling. You know, when your brain starts messing with you, you don't know what to do. My teammates killed themselves, and I couldn't believe it. You know, how somebody could take their life like that. But after I started having those same thoughts myself, had I had a gun, I wouldn't be here. Because my head hurt so bad that I just, the only way to get rid of it is just be done. And thank God that didn't happen. But
McMahon says the NFL is to blame.
I think they need to take care of the guys that put their lives on the line for this sport.
How are your teammates doing today?
Well, a lot of these guys are struggling. A lot of my teammates, Steve McMichael in particular, he's one of the biggest, strongest guys ever played in the NFL, and now he's in a wheelchair, blowing through a tube to get around. Can't use his arms or his legs. He's got ALS.
A groundbreaking study at Boston University found CTE, a progressive degenerative brain disease found in people with a history of repeated head trauma, in the brains of 99%, 110 out of 111 brains of former NFL players.
I know I have CTE.
110.
McMahon says he played through at least 5 concussions.
I mean, the way you played, you went at
people, you were not afraid. I mean, you had to know at the time that playing football was going to be harmful to your body. Did you have any idea that it was going to have an effect on your brain?
No. No, nobody ever mentioned the brain. I mean, everybody knows you're going to have bad knees, bad shoulders, but nobody ever mentioned the brain to anybody. You know, the league knew how bad this game is for you. They knew what was going to happen long term with a lot of these guys, and that information wasn't told to us.
McMahon was one of the first to sue the NFL in 2011 for failing to properly treat players for concussions and trying to conceal for decades any links between football and brain injury.
I want to find out what these guys knew and whether or not we're going to be compensated for our problems. And unfortunately, I was flat out denied.
More players filed suit against the NFL, and in 2017, the NFL concussion settlement was finalized to compensate former players who suffer from cognitive issues related to their time in the NFL.
So I've spoken to a number of players in the past 6 months. They've been diagnosed with dementia, and they've been awarded, and then they've been denied. What, in your opinion, is going on here? Trying to hide the fact that they knew about everything. I think one of the conditions of settling the lawsuit was they didn't have to say what they knew. There's no doubt they know what's going on. And they're very powerful people, man. They can make stuff go away.
A lot of former players, current players, are afraid to speak out against the NFL. You're clearly not.
I've never had a problem. Why is it they're always right? You know, it's my life too. And I want to find out what the hell is going on with me. And at least now I know. But a lot of these guys do not, and that's still the biggest problem.
Chronic
And
traumatic,
Rich McHugh joins us now with more.
chronic traumatic encephalopathy. But seriously, so this is what's happened to our kids. This is what's happening on the lacrosse field. You know, the point was that this is all about football, and this is nothing about football. This is about being jerked when you were born, coming through the birth canal. This is about a child learning how to walk and banging into the coffee table. This is about kids doing martial arts. It just goes on and on and on. And these kids, every now and then, will wake up and say, "Hey, Dad, hey, Mom, I have a headache." Okay, so you have pain in your cranium, in your skull, inside this fluid, and we're going to take you over to a cabinet, which we call the moisturizer cabinet, but the world calls it the medicine cabinet. We're going to give you chemistry to interfere with what your body is trying to get out and express. And so, so what we want to do is we want to educate everyone out there who we can that kids have got to get checked. So, in a good news mindset, we are focusing on something called hope. So we always want to focus on being hopeful when they come to our office, and we want to teach them how to start thinking a little bit differently, which is why we went over that verse earlier. When I think about a good news mindset, I think about being thankful. And I'm very thankful. I'm thankful for all you guys being here today, and those of you way in the back trying to get in at the Trump rally. No, I'm kidding. But I'm very glad that you're all here. And let's think about something cataclysmic, all right? Something cataclysmic would be a man that can't hear and a guy that says the body has tone, the body has hertz, the body has electricity. And I believe if we can balance out and get some homeostasis to whatever the system is that he was thinking about, his name was D.D. Palmer, and he was trying to figure out what could I do to balance out this something inside, because this outside-in stuff of chemicals and drugs and digitalis and sulfur drugs and all that didn't make sense to Dee. So Dee studied and studied and studied, and he laid hands on Harvey Lillard, and Harvey had no hearing, and from a cataclysmic standpoint, which changes the mindset of humanity, definitely of our country initially, is that he adjusted Harvey, hearing came back, and that should have exploded. And it did, but it took years and decades for it to get across the world, which it is now. In fact, I have a guy that who I work out with, and he is a chiropractor for Liverpool in England. And so these professional teams now all have chiropractors. Now, are they chiropractors practicing chiropractic, or are they chiropractors practicing therapy and all the other stuff too? That's another story, but at least chiropractic has gotten out there. So I'm thankful for D.D. Palmer. I'm thankful for BJ. I'm thankful that God chooses to use a regular guy like me to hang out and come up here and share with you guys. Thankful for Dee Dee's prayer. when Dee Dee grabbed BJ, right? And I had one of BJ's classmates come to my office and teach about 15 years ago. And he said, before Dee Dee laid hands on Harvey Lillard, they held hands and they said the Lord's Prayer. And a lot of people don't know that. So I heard this firsthand information for somebody who was in that vicinity and a roommate of B.J. Palmer's. So they brought God into it from the beginning. And when you study Dee Dee, he talks about the Lord all the time. He talks about faith. He talks about how the body's designed. He talks about intelligence. So that is what I am very thankful for. Now, I don't know if you all know, but in 1906, Dee Dee was arrested. So he led the way. Again, leadership. Dee Dee led the way and was arrested. And in 1932, 681 DCs were arrested. Why? My chiropractor in Glen Cove, Long Island was arrested. And so they were harping on my parents. They were telling people back in the 60s and 50s and 70s, if you know of a chiropractor, report them. That was what was happening up in New York. So I'm thankful for the people that went to prison for me so I could be here teaching the truth to you all, you know. In 1932, the AMA had dominated sickness care. Their mindset got into schools, their mindset got into government, and their mindset got into religion. So it was basically who's telling the truth and who's making up a lie. And the AMA used that thing called fear, which we know stands for false evidence that has an appearance of reality, so it's fear-based. God has taught us that he has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And so we don't walk in fear. In fact, how many days of work did you all miss when this thing happened 3-4 years ago? There was a virus that was going to kill everybody. You remember that little virus that they were saying we were all going to die? Recall that? Yeah?
I heard about it.
And I heard about it. So we missed 0 minutes of serving, and people were calling, and we had to be prepared. My staff had to be prepared to give a response, to give a defense, the Apostle Paul would say, for what it is that we cling to. And so we needed to give a defense of how God designed us and how God healed us, and the office just started flooding, and it was so cool to see. So persecution, yes, my parents persecuting our personal chiropractor, absolutely. And one of the big things that as I was growing up in the chiropractic world was when I went to DE over at Life College. And the reason why I went to Life College was for that word, L-I-F-E. When I heard all these other schools, but when I heard of Life, I went, God, Lord, show me the way, what school to go to. And this school is called Life, which is everything that you represent. And so when I finally made a decision to go to Life College, I go to DE, and there's a giant sign that says up, there is nothing bigger than life. And I said, wow, man, this place is full of life. But then I started questioning myself. What is bigger than life? I mean, what could be bigger than life? And what does that have to do with chiropractic? And then from studying the scriptures, I realized the source of life is bigger than the phrase, what is bigger than life? It's God. God is bigger than life. And so I took that, and I ran with that when I graduated, and I went down here to Orlando and I opened up our practice. And that's what we teach our family members that come in that. They are alive, which means they can heal. You're alive, which means your body can replicate normal functional tissue. God has designed you, who is the great physician. He has designed you to heal. He knows how to heal. He's placed it in your innate intelligence, your inherent inborn wisdom, knows how to replicate normal functional tissue, and we're going to show you how that works. Now, another thing that we teach our members that come to us with a good news mindset is something called a faith-based practice. So, faith defined is the substance of something that we hope for and the evidence of something that our eyes can't see. That's why it's faith. We hope for something, but we can't see it. But we teach our members that come to us that we walk by faith and not by what we see, and we definitely don't walk by what we've been learned over the last 100 years as far as sickness care in America. So that's faith, and I have hope in the outcome that I can't see, but I know it's going to happen. And so I let these people know. And I tell them, I say, let me tell you something. Well, I ask them, who sent you? And many, many times, I'd say 80% of the time, people say, well, you know, God just sent me, you know, God. And I go, God sent you? So if God sent you, you're going to get results. If God sent you, you're going to absolutely heal. Why? Because God sent you. And I love that. I love when they say God sent them. I mean, I get all woo, jazzed up, man, because I know you're going to get results. So we had a guy come to us. I'm not going to use his name, but I will say this. He came to us, and many people do come to us with dementia that we learned earlier. His right arm was totally paralyzed and atrophied at about 44 years old. And you know what I love doing in my history? I used to skip histories because that was part of my training. Like, it doesn't matter what your history is, it matters you have a subluxation, can we clear you out and you have a new day and a new life, right? I started finding out when these people come in, when I find out their history between the ages of birth and 10 years old, I can really get a picture for them of how their body's going to have to replicate and how it's going to start functioning and healing. And so this guy came in, right arm atrophy, total zero use of it 6 weeks ago. And I said to him, I said, so tell me, did you ever notice did you ever talk to your parents about your birth process? He goes, no, not really. I said, so did you ever have any issues? He says, well, I have a major issue in my neck, and they're going to do surgery on my neck next week. And I said, they are? Yeah. He says, they're going to do surgery. But then I got a weird phone call before we solidified my insurance, and they said, we're not going to do surgery on your neck. We did find herniated discs, but we don't think that you have, that we're going to continue doing the surgery. What we're going to do is we're going to diagnose you with ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. So I said to him, what does ALS mean? What does amyotrophic lateral sclerotic or sclerosis means? He says, no one's ever explained that to me. I asked his wife. She said, I don't know. I said, really? I said, did they tell you what the outcome is of ALS, of Lou Gehrig's disease? They said, no. I said, do you know what Lou Gehrig's disease is? They said, no. So they are not raising these people up at all. They're just throwing names at them and scaring them and putting fear into them. So I explained these simple things to them, and then I said, I go, think about did you ever jerk your body when you were a kid? You ever get jerked around? He says, absolutely. I said, how often do you have a memorable time when your head and your neck actually went through something? He said, actually about 6 to 7 days a week since I was 6 years old. I said, really? What are you talking about? He goes, I got involved in BMX bike riding, and what we used to do is we used to build ramps. And what we would do is we would take these ramps off roofs, off of decks, off of porches at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. I said, when did you stop doing that? He said, when my arm stopped working 3 years ago. So he's 44, his arm started shutting down at 41. He's been BMXing, surfing, and skateboarding daily since then. So I said, those jerks that you experience have jerked your spinal cord and caused brainstem pressure, which doesn't allow the fluid to express through the fourth ventricle. I said, now that's a very serious issue. The husband and wife said, no one has ever explained this to us. No one has ever told us this. What you're telling us is unbelievable. I said, yeah. I said, just curious, anything on nutrition you want to share with me? Well, now that you bring it up, yeah, my husband does drink Mountain Dew. I said, really? Mountain Dew? I mean, we know how poisonous Mountain Dew is. And I said, so about how much did you drink? Like a can a day, 2 cans a day? And he said, actually, I have drank, and since I was a little boy, weekly, over 100 cans a week of Mountain Dew. So we're talking high fructose corn syrup, we're talking about synthetic chemicals, citric acid, food coloring, over 100 cans a week. And his whole body is what? Oppressed. The nervous system is what? Shot. The central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, the autonomic nervous system. So we started working on him about 5.5 weeks ago, and on Wednesday, he came in. By the way, every day he comes in, he's got tears in his eyes, his wife's getting checked, their 2 daughters are getting checked, and they're like, this has been a life-changing experience for us, and we're so grateful for you and your staff and you guys. I mean, when I'm out there in the world, but when I come in here, it's like a breath of truth. And I said, well, we believe in truth, and we don't believe in relative truth, we believe in absolute truth. And he said, well, it's changed my life, man. I said, great. Then I did a progress exam on him last week, and I said, from a spiritual, physical, emotional standpoint, what changes have you noticed coming in? It's a guy with an atrophied arm that doesn't move at all, and now it's in his leg. If you study ALS, you would know what I'm talking about. And he said, well, my fingers are moving. And I went, praise the Lord, man. Wow. My fingers are moving. That's just, I started just weeping, man. My fingers are moving. Are you serious? So, exciting things are happening at Bellamore Chiropractic, and I'm sure your offices as well. So, The doctor and staff have to be able to express a measure of faith to the members. It is so important from that first phone call. When they call, we have to change the way they think from that first phone call. Like, I was referred to you. What did they say about us? Do you take my insurance? We don't refuse anyone care based on inadequate coverage. Is he going to adjust me on the first? Have you ever heard that? Is he going to adjust me on the first visit? Do they still talk like that? Does he? What is your response to that? Is he going to adjust me on the first visit? Well, you know, that's a great question. We get that about every day. And yet, that's what we do here. We actually adjust spines. So let's see what the doctor has to say. And then we'll see what the doctor has to say, if you're going to get adjusted on the first visit or not. But the staff has to understand faith, has to understand how we walk in faith, has to understand how God designed us, has to understand how we replicate, how we heal. The staff has to get it from the first phone call, and they have to move with it. And I tell you, I had a mom come down to my office, and she came down with her 3 kids, and she wanted all her kids to get checked. And I'm checking their kids, and I said, when is your husband coming in? Or just to talk, to go over one of our health lessons. We do 5 different lessons. And I said, when's your husband coming in? And she said, well, actually, he's just letting me come in with the kids. I said, fine. A week later, he showed up. His name was Richard, and I said to Richard Burkholz, I said, Richard, what do you think I'm doing to your wife and your 3 little kids, your 1-year-old, your 3-year-old, and your 6-year-old? I mean, do you believe in what we do? And this is what he said to me, and I'll never forget it. He said, I believe that you believe in what you do. And I went, you believe that I believe in you? Really? Oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it. So my belief system is what you're believing in, but you're not believing in what we do. Anyway, he came to a health lesson, got checked, and he's had a great chiropractic experience. Isn't that funny though, how people think? You just wonder what is going through these people's minds. So as our faith increases, our belief systems increase. And what happens to doubt? Well, as faith increases, guess what happened to this guy with the paralyzed arm? His doubt, he now has that thing we talked about earlier. He now has hope. He comes in hope, like this guy's talking about. People blowing off their heads on the football team, gunshot wounds to their chest. He wants to kill himself, Jim McMahon from the 1985 Chicago Bears football team. Why? Because these football players, and you've all heard about sports players killing themselves, right? Committing suicide. These guys are in pain all the time. Now, how do I know? Because I'm the chiropractor for Warner University. So I'm working on these athletes, I'm working on these coaches, I'm working on these athletic directors that played professional sports. And these people are saying pain pills, muscle relaxers, anti-inflammatories, and because they played in the NFL, they get to go to Rutgers University's health screenings once a year. And guess what now they get? Because they've been complaining 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years of complaining, they now send them to a Rutgers certified psychiatrist. And what does the psychiatrist do for the swelling and the pain and the achiness and the sleepless nights? Now they're taking Paxil, Zantac, and Zoloft. Mixing with what? With pain, OxyContin, oxycodone. And guess what happens from there? Because they're hopeless. And they take their lives. And we've heard it on and on and on from the medical system, that fallen, mechanistic, crazy system that people go to. So let me give you a quick definition of Webster. The faith-based mindset underneath the good news mindset. Faith is an unquestioning belief, a belief grounded in 100% of surety, that does not require proof or evidence. What is faith? Does not require proof or evidence. It's an unquestioning belief. This is Webster. It's an unquestioning. I do not question my belief in God. I take it as certainty and assurity. And you and I have all the proof and evidence in the world, like we're going to hear in a minute from the follow-up video of this, from the research and from what we see happen and what people say when they give us Google reviews, right? And who doesn't like a good Google review? Come on. And our faith and our belief is everything that's wrapped around truth. Self-regulating, self-replicating, and we're self-healing. We are, Corinthians 3:16, know ye not that you are, you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. You are all the temple of God. And anyone who shall defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy, for the temple of God is holy, which you are, if you're a believer. You are a holy, consecrated temple that God lives in. Why would you want to pollute it? Because my flesh gets hungry 3 days a week, and I eat saturated, hydrogenated poison. But we're not here to teach about that, so we'll keep moving on, okay? So, let's go over what our staff is going to teach. Members that come to you need to understand that we are a healing ministry. And once they understand, once our staff can teach it, and once we can teach it, let's define health and healing ministry. First of all, in the Greek, healing means a cure. Ministry means to serve. So we are serving out of our own abundance, something called lasting purpose, to serve for the sake of serving, to give for the sake of giving, and to love to see how much money I can get. No, no, no. You see where you got a little confused there, some of you? It's not about that. It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with the golden rule, right? Do those unto them, right? Bless people. Why? Just for the sake of blessing them and asking nothing in return. And that's the problem with us. We keep thinking we have to ask for something in return. Let's go over the definition of health. To repair or to restore. Health means to repair or to restore. Are you healthy? To be whole. Are you healthy? To be whole. Now, the health medical crazy people, the mechanistic medical doctors, their definition of health is absolutely mind-boggling. Because their definition of health is the absence of sickness, disease, and pain. The chiropractor's definition of health is the presence of life. See the difference? So if someone comes to you, they're in the middle of an asthma attack. Please, please, Dr. J, please, please, help me with my 8-year-old. She can't breathe, she can't breathe. What Dr. J would say would be, I can't take away that asthma attack that your daughter's going through, but I can put back into her what she's missing. And by me removing that blockage, that interferi of the impulse of life, the electrical chemical life force, if I can put it back into her, then the body can be restored because God designed that little girl to be restored. So we have to teach totally against these crazy people, because when we say, oh yeah, health is the absence of sickness, well, sickness, disease is always absent until when? Until it's present. So why would we go from A, my body's expressing, I'm doing awesome, I'm at 100%, and Z, I have a tumor in my breast, okay? So I feel good, I feel good, I feel good, I feel good, I feel good. Oh, I found one. What'd you find? I got a nodule. Well, you went from no nodule to nodule because their idea of prevention is waiting till you notice the nodule. So how can that be prevention, teaching your little girls to feel their breast until they find the cotton-picking nodule? It's insanity. But we brainwash and we teach these children this craziness, and then we don't even teach the truth when they come to our office. And we're teaching them, wait till you notice failure? That's what chiropractic is? I regress. Am I on video? Oh, okay. So, we got it now, right? Okay, so what is vitalistic? Vitalistic, chiropractic definition, man. Restore the life force, the presence of life. We now have the ability to effectively adapt to the stresses of life. That is the definition of chiropractic health. What is the definition? The ability that we have, you in the back, the ability that we have to effectively adapt to the stresses of life. And by the way, where does that adaptation come from? Well, Stevenson's 24 principle out of his 34th says what? The limits of adaptation. The innate intelligence is limited by the limitations of matter. And so matter is limited. But God is unlimited. There's no limit to what God can do, including this guy with this ALS craziness that he's going through, man. So, when we understand that the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, the systems of the body, the brain, brainstem, spinal cord, that controls the ability to adapt to the junk. Well, what is a stressor? Emotional? Has anybody here ever had emotional stress? Has anybody ever been tested before? Has anybody ever gone on their knees and had to pray for their kids? I know we do about, well, would you say we go through all 6 of the kids twice a day? Would that be the average? Yeah. The ability that we have to effectively adapt to every stressor in life, environmental, emotional, mental, physical. And then there's another stress, it's called spiritual warfare. We are in a war, if you haven't noticed. Hey, anybody put the computer on? See what kind of wars we're in right now? So, the cause of dis-ease, interference with the transmission of what? Innate forces. Those outside-in forces, man. And so that would be number 30 out of Stevenson's 33rd principles. The causes of dis-ease. By the way, what is dis-ease? Well, dis is lack of, and ease is right, rest, peace, balance, homeostasis. So, the cause of taking peace out of the body, rest out of the body, balance out of the body, ability to replicate itself. Interference with the transmission of innate forces causes something called incoordination. So now the systems are no longer coordinated. We have a confused systems, and that equals what? Disease. So now that we understand what health is and what health is not, now and only now do we know where to get it. And that's the power of the chiropractic adjustment. Is it Walgreens? Yeah, we can get health at Walgreens. Really? CVS. Is it in a needle? Is it in a knife? Is it in a drug? Which pill moves the bone off the brainstem and releases the life force, like in the Jim McMahons and athletes of our children? Which pill organizes and coordinates the flesh to recreate normal functional cellular replication and sets the inherent, inborn, innate life force baby free to replicate normal functional tissue? It's the mind-blowing beauty of the hands-on chiropractic adjustment that speaks life. We speak life into these dead people. The dead, they're depressed. They're oppressed bodies and minds, and they come to us and they just want to speak life into them and hope. And you're just listen to me give your body 6 months. Give your body a year. Come on. Let's do this together. We are for you. Here's my personal cell number. Call me anytime, not between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. But call me anytime you need me. I'll be at your hospital bed. We had a practice member fell through the ceiling in her garage. Broke her spinal cord. They're going to go and do surgeries for several months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago. Honey, I'm going to the hospital. I'm going tonight. And we're going to go, and I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, I want to see that woman. And I went in that woman. They had surgeons in there. Her husband was there. And I said, guys, you want my opinion? Yeah, doc, we want your opinion. Let's get her out of here. Get her out of this building right now. When we got her out of there, now she's doing awesome. And she got employed by us last week. Yeah, she got a great story, man. So, we know that the life force is a gift from God. And with that life force representing itself to 100%, we are now free to replicate normal functional tissue. And in doing that, oh my gosh, a body that's been dying for a period of time, and that body that's dying for a period of time, it shows up at your offices, it comes in through your front door, and they are starving for the truth. They're starving to be cared for. They're starving to hear words like, you are going to be okay. I see you healing. You know what? I see your body, I see it rebooting. I noticed your posture this morning. You're starting to function better, aren't you? Well, how did you know that? Because you've been coming in for a week, every day. 7 days this week, including Sunday after church. That's why we have a good news mindset in our office, man. And nothing can come against it, because we're going to have victory over it. Our healing ministry, where we will speak hope, we will speak love over you, and we'll speak love over your family. We'll speak love over your parents, your grandparents, your children. And in love, and you will increase in mobility. You will increase in functionality. You will increase in vitality. You'll start doing things like experiencing rebooting of organs and glands. Your sleep will come back. Your hair will start growing. You'll start moving. You'll start breathing. You'll have energy again. In fact, you'll start sleeping again, because you won't be listening to the crazy people telling you you're going to be sick the rest of your life. You can rest in the truth that God sent you to us, so be ready to experience a touch from the Master Hero. The Master Healer, who's who? It's the Lord. God is the healer. All right, I'm getting ready to close. Hang in there. You're doing all a good job. You guys in the back, yes? Still awake? Okay. Mm-hmm. So let me close with, I love this Dr. Sid story. You guys are going to love this Dr. Sid story. And this story for me, which was a life-changing story, which I will try to clearly express, but it's about what happened to a boy that cataclysmically changed our country and the world. This boy's name was Billy Graham. And Dr. Sid shared this story over at Life Chiropractic College. Actually, he shared it at the college and at DE. He said this young boy was struggling with modernism. This is in the late 1920s, early 1930s. The science of evolution, science or theory, science of evolution and philosophy. And Billy Graham had come to the crossroads. Would he walk by faith or would he walk away from his faith? So as Dr. Sid explained, which I confirmed in reading Billy Graham's bio, one very late evening, Billy Graham was just woken up. And he walked out into the woods alone, seeking direction from his God for his own personal faith. The Bible has taught me, either I'm for the Lord, me, or I'm against the Lord. Billy alone, Billy Graham in the quietness of his family's North Carolina farm, heard a trickle above his head. And that trickle caught his attention. He was drawn from his worries to a simple leaf falling down from heaven. And in a split second, the distraction changed Billy Graham's focus to the answer. This is quote, end quote. The Bible sealed by a prayer. Billy's prayer was, quote, Father, I am going to accept this as thy word by faith. I am willing. I'm going to allow faith to go beyond my intellectual questions and doubts, and I will believe these scriptures to be your God, your inspired word. From this moment on, I will believe your scriptures to be absolutely true and inspired. Eventually, God sent Billy Graham to a place called Seoul, Korea, to bring a message to the largest single crowd ever gathered in history. 3.1 million souls met on the tarmac in Seoul. Broken down. This is what they did. They figured out the width of these, approximate width of all these folks in South Korea. And anybody ever been to a stadium over 25,000? 50,000? Over 60,000? Over 70,000? Wow. So you know how big that is, right? Can you imagine breaking this down to 100,000 people seating arrangement? 1 million people per message plus. 1 million people plus per message. And they broke down this one, and they had a video. This is so amazing. He sat there, and he gave a message like he's never given a message. And you and I have been given a burden. We haven't. We've been given a burden. We've been given a vision that God gave Dee Dee. Dee Dee was convicted that because God created us, God can heal us. Dee Dee had a call in his life, and you and I, at whatever age you are, Jack LaLanne Jr., you and I have a calling on our life. God has called you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and even you, and you, to marry me. And God has called us to do something bigger than ourselves. But we've got to walk by faith and not by our sight. BJ had a burden on his heart that drove him, because of the burden, gave birth to a vision. And the vision is beyond what our eyes can see, right? The Bible teaches, my people will perish for lack of what? Vision. Or in McAvonaug's New King James versus King James, my people will perish for lack of vision. Dee Dee and BJ were blessed with something called spiritual eyes. They were blessed with these spiritual eyes. And I personally love to pray to God, and I love to ask God to give me those spiritual eyes. Give me spiritual ears so I can see the truth, so I can hear the truth. And look what Helen Keller said. Blind. I'd rather have lost my eyes than to have kept my eyes but have lost my vision. She said that. A godly woman. So what is your heart burdened with now in your life? What's going on in your lives right now that there's something struggle, there's something that's a challenge, there's something that we need to pray through? It is the parents that have been bold-faced lied to, that they must give their beautiful babies experimental injections only to get a call that their child died after that injection. Or how about that baby that is now paralyzed because of that injection? Or how about those experimental antibiotics has destroyed your child's God-given natural bacterial flora in the gut? And now your 13-year-old daughter is labeled Crohn's disease girl, or pre-cancer colon, Or your husband is now a pre-diabetic as well. And you're a possible pre-stage 1 ovarian cancer candidate. We read that blood test last week in my office. Well, you're a probable stage 1 ovarian cancer. What the heaven is a probable state? Who's telling this woman this? I had to grab her head. I had to hug her. I said, we got to pray. Are you buying into this that you're probable? It said it on the report. Probable. And this is the stuff they read. These are the people they hang out with, man. Gosh, man. So, are you burdened with the continual attacks of lies and disgusted with the deception, with the bombardment of this half-truth after half-truth after half-truth? Do you think your circle of influence would finally like to hear the absolute truth from all of you that are here tonight? Is it you that will step up to the calling God has placed in your life by faith? Think, why would one of the largest, wealthiest, and strongest industries in the world use a term that is typically translated from the ancient Greek word pharmakia to represent pharmacy, a pharmacist, meaning sorcery and witchcraft, and a poison used to manipulate and control others? That's what pharmakia means. Why would they call themselves? The pharmaceutical global industry uses a 2,000-year-old biblical term representing poison and control. Why would they pick it? Because the prince of the power of the air, Satan, owns this world. We have victory over that, but he owns this world. And they know their system. Oh, the pharmaceutical industry knows their system. It's dark, it's deceptive, it's false, and a massive money-making, powerful half-truth. And remember, anytime anyone is teaching you a half-truth, or your kid's a half-truth, or your spouse a half-truth, what part of the half-truth do they want you to believe? The lie. So as far as my mission is concerned, when I was invited to speak to the Central Florida Radiological Association by the AMA, and I went down to lecture to all these radiologists, and I said, you know what, I got invited. If I'm invited, what do I got to do? What should you do if you're invited? Or if you're invited, or if you're invited? What are you going to do?
Tell the story.
You're going to tell a story, man. You're going to stick to the truth. Amen? So you have to say yes. The reason why I'm up here right now is because I was invited. So I'm like, wow, I'll drive up there and hang out and have some fellowship. Because you guys bless me. And I just want to bless you. And we just want to be, we all have the same thing in common. We want to be used by the Lord, man. Some people only want to be used by the Lord when they're comfortable. But when you're uncomfortable, that's when you grow, you know? And so I had to submit to doing things. I was recently the MC for the Kentucky Derby event. And I said to my wife, I don't want to be the MC for the Kentucky Derby outreach for the people who don't have a place to live. I really don't want to be the MC. I'll go. I'll write a check. But I don't want to be no MC. But my wife got me a cute little thing to wear, a bow tie thing, and a little thing in my little tissue in my pocket. So I went to that radiological lecture, man, and I told them the truth, man. And I put up my little dinky. They had audio-visual stuff for all the expert radiologists before me. And now we'd like to introduce a chiropractor who will now teach you about the chiropractic subluxation. And I went out with my little slides. Remember the slides we used to have? Yeah. I went out with my slide thing. I went, don't get me out of here, Lord! But they heard the truth. Amen? All right, let's finish this video. I want you to hear what happens to Jim McMahon. You guys are going to love this. In fact, I think I'm going to shut the light out here. Is that okay? So he is going to actually explain, and I know some of you have seen this, but I can see this over and over again. I love watching this stuff. Oh, that's good.
I couldn't see very well. I couldn't talk very well. All I wanted to do was lay down because my head was just constantly pounding. The pain had gotten so bad where if I had had a gun, I wouldn't have been here. And these two doctors from New York called me and said, hey, we think we can help you. We think we know what's going on. I said, let's do it.
Jim was diagnosed with early onset dementia. He had been complaining about a brain fog, as he described it, as well as he described it, a headache where he felt like ice picking on both sides of his brain.
Stop it. Do you think they would have used the word chiropractic? No, they skipped that part. These guys are chiropractors, and they're going to do something miraculous for this guy, which is an upper cervical atlas orthogonal adjustment, I believe. And they don't even use the term chiropractic at this point. Where's the word chiropractic? Okay, go ahead, bro.
While most concussion studies are focused on the brain, McMahon's team traces the effects of CTE directly to the upper spine, having found that neck misalignment can block the flow of spinal fluid and pool toxic proteins directly onto the brain.
Spinal fluid is white. That's the spinal cord. This is the spinal column. What you're seeing is a narrowing of the opening.
Does that look clear to you?
Spinal fluid's supposed to come
I
through.
mean, really.
Most of the time when you're having head problems, that's all they look at is the head. These guys were smart enough to at least look below the head at the neck and see if there was a problem somewhere.
Really, we're going to look at something other than where the symptom is. We're going to make BJ proud of us, because we're going to look to the brainstem. We're going to look to the atlas axis C3, something high up, and we're going to turn the power on. And it's just such a subtle adjustment. It's so beautiful. But yet, again, a perfect confirmation that chiropractors just need to stick to the subluxation, man, and just let it go. Okay, thanks, Don.
Found my problem. You're not going to be able to reverse the damage. Like I said, that stuff was sitting in there for 20 years. So how much it ate away at my brain, I don't know.
Using detailed images captured by the MRI scans, McMahon regularly receives targeted adjustments, clearing the blockage and restoring the flow of spinal fluid.
This instrument is going to generate a gentle mechanical tapping that is just lightly going to put those bones right back into normal position. Okay. Then sit back up.
First time they did this procedure, within 2 minutes, it was like the toilet flush. I could feel this stuff actually leaving my brain. My eyes cleared up, my speech cleared up.
The left is before, the right is after.
So cool,
So you see
man.
how much there is there?
Look at that white
Wow.
CSF, man. Look at the difference of the
Instead of all
whiteness.
this white stuff being
I mean,
there, you
night
see
and day.
more brain tissue than fluid. So it's already started to bring. Over the next several days, it'll improve more.
What damage it's done, it's done. I can't reverse that. But what these guys do for me, they keep me from being.
Did you hear what he said? Oh, we released the atlas. Now what's happening is that fourth ventricle and that congestion of the CSF that couldn't get out properly, couldn't pump properly, is now coming out. And by the way, over the next several days, it's going to continue to get better. I love how we spoke that over him, man. I love how we spoke that. And that's exactly what we need to do in our office.
Having these bad pains, having these suicidal thoughts, having me function fairly normally while I can't.
Oh. Okay. Hey, so thank you so much for having me. Dr. J, it was great being here. Yeah, it was fun. And yeah, so thank you for Saturday Night Live. Yeah, turn the light back on. Thank you, doctor. Thank you, my assistant doctor. And thank you, everyone who made it tonight.
Live from St. Augustine. It's been Saturday night. And September 14th, Dr. Paul will be here. So tune in and be here or be square.
Ooh, that is powerful, man. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Any questions?
Any questions?